Hello and good morning. Welcome to an early Saturday, October 14th morning at Wellington MBTA Orange Line Station. Today I'll be embarking on what should be a pretty long journey throughout New England. I'll be heading to South Station to take a train to Worcester, and then taking a series of buses to get from Worcester to Amherst, Northampton to Springfield, and then I'll be taking a train to New Haven. After my train to New Haven, then I'll be going to New London, taking another train from there to Providence, and then finally heading back to Boston on a train from Providence to South Station. I just had to get up super early, and it's almost like 6 o'clock, but beyond that, it should be a pretty fun journey. In my groggy explanation of the route, I forgot to mention that I will be taking several transit agencies throughout this trip, a couple of them for my first time. I'll be taking the MBTA for the trips starting from Boston and Providence, the PVTA for the first time for trips starting from Worcester, Amherst, and Northampton, CTRail for the first time for the Hartford line from Springfield and the Shoreline east from New Haven, and Amtrak for the trip between New London and Providence. Downtown. Time for a walk to South Station. Departure boards over at the platforms. See, my train is leaving at 7. About where my train should board, since it's going toward Back Bay. It kind of has to go on one of these platforms here, or on these tracks here. But since there's not any other trains on tracks 1 through 5, it's most likely going to be this one right here. With that, I am off on the first leg of the trip to Worcester. This ride is 44.2 miles long, has 18 stops, and is scheduled to take 1 hour and 35 minutes, putting the scheduled arrival time in Worcester at 8:35 a.m. This stop is Framingham, a relatively major city and halfway point on the route, as well as the heart of the Metro West region of Massachusetts. The train was fairly full until this stop, with many passengers getting off here and some trickling out the rest of the way to Worcester. We are on time with a 7:51 a.m. departure. One neat part about the approach to Worcester is that you can see the station in the distance toward the left side of the window here. Have a good day. In Worcester at 8:32 a.m., a couple minutes ahead of schedule. The ride was smooth overall, with no issues or complaints on my side. This walk to the station could be better though. Alright, I have made it to Worcester. Just had to head over to the garage. That'll be where the PVTA 79 bus should pick me up from. So far, this has been a success, although I didn't expect anything to go wrong so far. You can see they're doing construction here. And hopefully once the construction is done at these platforms, this walk will be a lot shorter. And you can see the station here. In contrast to the outside of the station towards the platforms, the interior and front exterior is clean and complete, and in my opinion is one of the more aesthetically pleasing stations in Massachusetts and New England as a whole. Beautiful. Here's where all the Worcester buses are, and the inner city ones. Alright, I think I'm where the bus is supposed to stop. I was surprised by how many people got off the bus. I can see how this would be a very popular route for students to get to Boston on weekends. This is also my first time riding in one of these vans, which I was a little nervous about. My first impressions are positive, however, as the seats are comfortable and the vehicle is clean. After helping my one fellow passenger navigate the ticketing app, we were off on our journey on time at 8:50 a.m. The Blue 79 route has 10 stops and is over 50 miles long. The trip is scheduled to take 1 hour and 45 minutes, putting the scheduled arrival time in Amherst at 10:35 a.m. Another surprising aspect about this trip was how scenic it was, as I was able to see placid lakes and mountain peaks looking out of the tops of trees passing by, a sure sign we were entering the Pioneer Valley. The only other passenger on my trip got on here in Ware, a charming small town along the route. At this point, we were several minutes ahead of schedule, so the driver took the opportunity to grab some supplies.
Her uncle and aunt are there and stuff. Everyone from town's there. You know, so she'll go with her friends and they go out. Yeah. It's a nice thing when you try to put a bill for
The trip was coming to a close as we passed by Amherst Common and through downtown to get to UMass Amherst. Overall, this part of the journey was very pleasant, and I was very happy that everything was going well so far, even in uncharted territory for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, too.
Thank you so much.
You got everything? You're welcome.
Yes.
Good luck, you guys.
You too. Alright, I have made it to Amherst. Our bus, or the bus that I was on, is pulling away now. So, this long trek is done. We're here about like 5 minutes early. It's 10:30. We're supposed to arrive at 10:35. So now I just wait for the next bus. Here's the B43. Overall, just walking around Amherst is actually quite nice. I've never been in this area of the state before. I can see like the really cool like mountain in the background. You can really tell we're in the valley here. I've seen a few of the PVTA buses around and they seem very nice and clean. The bus that I'll be getting on, the 43 to Northampton, departs in like 10 minutes, so I'm just making my way over there after walking around a little. The waiting area for the bus was clean and spacious with plenty of seating. I also appreciated the digital display for the upcoming arrivals, at least while it was working. It stopped working. After watching a training bus, whose display is not nearly as flashy as my camera makes it out to be, stop here for a few minutes, my 43 bus to Northampton arrived approximately 10 minutes late. The 43 route connects the cities of Amherst and Northampton via UMass Amherst, the Hampshire Mall, and Smith College. The trip has 20 stops and is about 9 1/3 miles. My trip stopping just before Smith College is scheduled to take 41 minutes, putting my scheduled arrival time in Northampton at 11:38 a.m. Beyond the understandable crowdedness of this bus, I first noticed these gaudy signs that are present on these larger PVTA buses. There will be a better look and more thoughts on these signs later. The bus seemed to thin out at this deviation to the Hampshire Mall, allowing me a better look at the seats and overall cleanliness of the bus. Everything looks pretty good, and these seats are decently comfortable. I was also seated right by one of the speakers, so you get a chance to hear how weak the stop requested announcement can be.
Stop requested. Approaching Masonic Street, across from Academy of Music. Transfer to R41, R42, R44, P48.
Thank you, have a great day. So this is Northampton. another college-ish town. There's the bus I just got off of, and then the drive just a few minutes late. It's like 11:36. I was supposed to get here at 11:30. Still plenty of time to make my connection. So I'll be on the Green 73 Express. I'm impressed again with the waiting area for the buses here. It's very spacious with lots of seating and has a very good working digital display for upcoming arrivals. There are even some community activities going on nearby. After only a few minutes of waiting, my express bus to Springfield has arrived, with only a few other passengers getting on board. These seats are more comfortable than the bus I was just on before, with proper padding. The bus was also nice and clean apart from some crumbs and dust here and there. The fact that these intense signs are the only things I see overhead on these buses makes me feel like a criminal just for being on here. Riding the bus should be more welcoming than this. After a 5-minute delay due to our driver getting distracted by somebody waiting for another bus, and I was on my way to Springfield at 11:55 a.m. The 73 Express route connects Northampton to Springfield via the Holyoke Mall. The trip only has 4 stops and is about 20 miles. The trip is scheduled to take only 35 minutes, putting my scheduled arrival time in Springfield at 12:30 p.m. This ride also provided some scenic views of the Pioneer Valley as we whizzed south toward Springfield Union Station. After a brief deviation to the Holyoke Mall, my next stop was Springfield. The approach to downtown seemed to capture the city well, and the buses stopped right at Springfield Union Station at the PVTA's very organized hub. Thank you, have a great day. I arrived at Springfield a couple minutes earlier than scheduled at 12:28 p.m., officially marking the midpoint for this journey. Alright, I've made it to Springfield. This officially marks a way to get to Springfield without using one of those green buses over there, or Amtrak specifically. So, hooray, we did it. The waiting and ticketing area for the PVTA buses is quite nice, with a good view of the buses, lots of seating, clear and concise information displays, and a clean, welcoming environment for passengers. The main hall of the station is also very nice, with some small shops, public art, a good amount of natural light, a large informative display, and plenty of seating, making this a friendly, tidy space to wait for the train. My train is on time. Alright, getting on my CTrail to New Haven. And there it is. I was originally confused as to why a handful of passengers were being split into 2 coaches, but that will become evident once we get to Hartford. One thing I immediately noticed about these train coaches was how similar they are to the single-level MBTA coaches. However, these ones were manufactured by Worcester in the early 90s. The seats were comfortable, with a decent amount of legroom. Alright, now this is a cool little thing. The train departed on time at 2:20 p.m. The Hartford line connects Springfield and New Haven via Hartford. The trip has 8 stops and is 62 miles. My trip to New Haven Union Station is scheduled to take 1 hour and 32 minutes, putting my scheduled arrival time at 3:52 p.m. This leg of the journey was one of the more stressful ones, as my Shoreline East train departs from New Haven at 4:05 p.m. Right at the beginning of the trip, I was treated to some wonderful views of the Connecticut River as we headed south toward Hartford and New Haven.
Now arriving at Hartford Station.
We pulled into Hartford Union Station approximately 5 minutes late at 3:04 p.m. due to traffic on the tracks. My tight connection at New Haven had officially been made into a sub-10-minute connection. Many people boarded here at Hartford, and it started to make sense why the Hartford-bound passengers were separated from the New Haven-bound ones, as it makes the boarding process much easier. We departed Hartford after only a couple minutes. Even with a delay, I was still confident that we would arrive with time for me to board my Shoreline East train.
Good afternoon, CTRail passengers. Please take notice of all emergency exits in your area. If you have any questions, please ask. Next stop, Berlin, followed by Meriden, Wallingford, State Street, and New Haven Union Station. Please have your tickets out and ready. Connection at a short Grand Central. Connection will be on track 14 at 4:15. I repeat, your Metro North connection at a North Grand Central, track 14 at 4:15.
I will not stand for this Shoreline East erasure. We arrived at New Haven about 5 minutes late at 3:57 p.m. Overall, it was a comfortable and pleasant ride, and the conductors were friendly. At one point, a passenger had to be removed because they refused to give their paid-for ticket to the conductor, which was just bizarre, but luckily that was the only negative part of my experience. I had only 8 minutes to make it to my New London-bound train. Thankfully, I did not have to go far, as the Shoreline East train was just on the other side of the concourse, at the same platform as the Metro North train mentioned earlier.
Attention customers.
Alright, made it to the New London train.
That this is the final boarding call for Amtrak train 135 to Washington, D.C., scheduled to depart at 4:04 p.m.
I was able to breathe a sigh of relief as I sat into my super comfortable M8 coach seat that will take me east to New London.
Madison, Clinton, Westbrook, Old Saybrook, and New London. 405 departure. Purchase some tickets. If you don't have a ticket, try and use the app.
The Shoreline East train to New London departed on time at 4:05 p.m. The Shoreline East connects New Haven and New London along the Connecticut coast. The trip has 7 stops and is just over 50 miles. As one of the shortest duration legs of the journey, I will be on the Shoreline East for 1 hour and 5 minutes, putting my scheduled arrival in New London at 5:10 p.m. I have a bit of a tight connection in New London, as my Amtrak train to Providence is scheduled to depart at 5:36 p.m. The wonderful coastal views out my window should keep me worry-free. These M8 coaches are the exact same ones as used on Metro North, and this coach is exemplary of the comfort and cleanliness that I've come to find on these trains. The seats are super nice, with good legroom, power sockets, and the coach is quite clean.
And this will be Guilford next, and middle 2 coaches to exit Guilford next.
At about the halfway point, I decided to buy my Amtrak ticket to Providence as I had been waiting to purchase it until I was sure I could make it. To my lovely surprise, my Amtrak train had a slight delay, making my connection at New London less of a worry.
Station stop coming up. Here's our final stop, New London, folks. This will be our final stop in London. There's only one coach opening for London. That's the 3rd coach. Again, if you're in the first 2 coaches, only need a 3rd coach. You have to make your way back to the 3rd coach to exit. And if you're in the last coach on the train, make your way forward to the coach. Again, 3rd coach to exit for New London. Our final stop here in just a few minutes. Again, New London. Thanks for traveling with us on Shoreline East. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a great day. I arrived in New London on time at 5:10 p.m. Overall, I had a very pleasant experience on the Shoreline East, with no complaints. Almost all of the passengers were on for the entire line, with a sizable amount getting off at Old Saybrook. Alright, I have made it to New London. My Amtrak train is delayed, so I've got a little bit of time here. Not my first time at this station. When I did my New York loop, I also went through here. But this is the first time at least going through and it's actually light outside, so I can see stuff and things are happening. Alright, my Amtrak train is like 45 to 50 minutes late, but it's almost time for it to be here. So they sent us out to the track. Hopefully I make it home.
Attention ladies and gentlemen, train number 88 en route to Worcester substation will be driving next on track number 2, making stops in Kingston, Providence, Route 128, back today, Boston, and Boston substation. You must be on track 2 before the train arrives, as it will block access for boarding.
My Northeast Regional train number 88 departed about 50 minutes late at 6:26 p.m. My trip today is only 4 stops and is almost 63 miles. My regional trip to Providence is scheduled to take 50 minutes, putting my arrival time at 7:16 p.m. My delay made me trade my short connection at New London for an even shorter one at Providence, but I should be okay as the station is pretty small. Since the train was pretty crowded and dark, I didn't record much here. This trip was a fairly standard regional trip with better seating and generally better amenities than the commuter trains.
Now arriving from Amsterdam.
There's my train.
Had I known it was 7:20, I'd call.
At this point, I knew I was able to make my 9-minute connection to Boston and I was going home. I recall that the driver of the PVTA B79 bus had wished me good luck as I stepped off of it.
Good luck, you guys.
You too. Now, I'm normally not wished good luck as I step off of buses, but I appreciated it in hindsight here. If one of my buses or trains had been just a little bit late or I had missed one of my connections, my journey would have been ruined. I was able to make my entire loop with very little issue, even with the traffic and delays. Thank you again for this great luck, PVTA B79 driver. The The seats on the MBTA bi-level coaches used on both the Providence and Worcester legs of my journey are decently comfortable, and the train is pretty clean.
Folks, this is the inbound train at South Station. Next stop, Pawtucket Central Falls, followed by Attleboro, Mansfield, Sharon, Canton Junction, Route 128, Hyde Park, Ruggles, Back Bay, and South Station.
The Providence Line train to South Station departed on time at 7:25 p.m. This trip is 43.6 miles long with 11 stops connecting the Providence area to Boston via the Northeast Corridor. This trip is scheduled to take 1 hour and 15 minutes, putting my arrival back at South Station at 8:40 p.m. I arrived back at South Station at 8:36 p.m., about 4 minutes ahead of schedule. My MBTA trip was pretty typical, and I enjoyed it. Overall, this journey was a fun way to try out different transit systems throughout New England. After almost 15 hours of it, though, I'm ready to be home. Here I am, back 15 hours later.